Morning Glory. I mean, she's clearly dealing with this miscarriage and the lingering emotional despair that this woman has to deal with through it. And it's very clearly represented in the beginning scene where she's covered in blood. And she makes this unlikely companion in this handyman, and they bond over their love for plants, who she looks as her children because each plant has its own distinctive personality according to her. And then in this bonding, you see this relationship form where they're able to confess these dark secrets to one another about what they consider as the failures of their lives, whether it's the disconnection from their family or things that they've done to make their family feel disconnected from them, or the disconnection from the husband, or the feeling like the miscarriage was her fault, and how she feels about the marriage going forward. And I do think that there's some elements of symbolism that were draped into this throughout, especially in the end when she's being wrapped up in the plants. And it kind of left you with this image of her feeling like maybe she's suffocated by her life. It's clear that people feel like she's not okay since losing this baby, which is understandable. And so it's sort of like this is the first person who has talked to her like a normal person. It was very interesting, the character choices for the handyman for me, because he did seem a little rude and off-putting at first, and then he kind of grew on me after a while, which I think was obviously probably a directorial choice or a choice of the actor. But at first it gave me the feeling of you ain't be talking to me like that in my house, is how I would have related to it. But it also made the relationship that they were able to get towards the end earned, because she really had to kind of soften him, or he had to soften himself based off their aligning likes in love for plants. So yeah, it was definitely a very interesting piece.
This review is for Morning Glory. This was very interesting. It is quite deep and weirdly cryptic. They have an excellent approach to a very sensitive topic of loss, journeying, despair, loneliness, the unlikely companionship with a stranger, the insightfulness and vulnerability of this interaction of with this people that's just an outsider to your whole life, but then you get so honest and vulnerable. Then we have the fake plants and the blood and the reference to the dead baby and the blanket, the purple blanket. It's just the elements are so characteristic, and I loved how they constantly make a reference to that. She eating raw vegetables from her own garden, that the ones that are not fake. It's just very cryptic. I really loved exploring what it might mean. And I also liked at, at some point they explore what would happen if you stop trying. And we also have, on the other hand, the broken dreams, the strange father, hurting your family. It's just brilliant. Then we have this scene where there's this huge betrayal at the end. You can see her heart breaking, and it's just brilliant. I had a great time. This script was so profound, and the performances are excellent as well.
Morning Glory. This short film was very interesting. I wasn't quite sure where it was going to go every turn, so I really liked that. I thought it was really great. It kept my attention. Um, just a unique and interesting artistic approach to this type of story. I felt like these two characters were totally like an unlikely couple who, not couple, but a couple of characters who were unlikely to connect in the way that they ended up connecting. And I think they both needed that. So there were a couple weird things for me in the story, just like when the guy first got to the house. I thought it was weird that he just walked right in after she opened the door. Just something really picky that I noticed because he was so angry right off the bat and he just like walked right in. I just didn't think that was super realistic. But that aside, I kind of just suspended some of my thoughts and let the story carry itself out. And I just really loved where it went. I thought it had some really special moments between these two. The actress especially was very strong. The lead actress, I thought she did great in carrying this story. And even the guy too, I thought he played that character very well. Because he obviously had some inner turmoil, but connected with her really over the plants to begin with. And then it just took off from there. I also thought it was weird she just came to the door in a shirt, but those are just my little things. I thought, showing her going through what she was going through before he got there and just how they connected, I thought was really nice. And the name of the film, Morning Glory, based on the plant and what the plant meant, and then having him have thrown the plant in the street. I wasn't sure why he did that, but I did like a lot of the moments, and I did like, I think a lot in the script was really hit home. Some of the things were like, why don't you stop trying? And I think at one point she just decided, okay, I think I just need to accept what is, what is, it is what it is, and kind of go from there, as opposed to keep trying so hard. But then showing her at the fight and getting so into it, I think showed that she is a fighter herself. And yeah, maybe she's not going to completely stop trying, but she's a fighter emotionally as well. And I don't know, I really liked that. I liked the ending. I liked where it went with these two characters. So great job to everyone.
I thought this was an interesting film and very experimental. I think it worked well to capture the emotions of the characters in an interesting way. Definitely very emotional, interpretive at parts, and it was interesting to see how it did that visually and with the dialogue and the interaction and the props between the characters.
Morning Glory was a really interesting piece. I think it was an interesting look at marriage, or like a marriage falling apart, a relationship falling apart, and how that manifests in real life and the things leading up to it. And this woman's relationship with her plants almost kind of like taking the place of losing this child earlier in the year, and how that affects a relationship and all of that. I think it was a really emotional look, and I think the actors fared really well in showing that on screen. I think this was an interesting watch, and I think the pacing was there. I think it had an interesting tone, looking at this couple and how they interact and watching their relationship kind of fall apart on screen. The editing was great. The filming was great. Like all the technicalities were there, and they were done very well. And it came down to this story, which was a really, really interesting watch. So you should be very, very proud of the story and the way it came to screen. Overall, really well done.
I really like Morning Glory. I thought it was beautifully directed, is what I want to say. Like the idea, like I think the blocking was S tier. Like this, as far as using the space to its fullest advantage, as far as where you position the actors, the subtext of where you position the actors and what that means about the character and what that means about the story, and the relationship between the two, and wherever you place them relative to the camera. I thought that in this film really shined. We see a lot of like short films, especially low budget short films or whatever, where it's like the blocking is fine or whatever, but this one, the blocking stood out to me, I guess, if that makes sense. Everything else was also great. Writing, story, editing, acting, all that fantastic. The color scheme also great, but shout out to the blocking.